First of all, we all have different dreams. How many of us are determined to make those dreams come true? Remember that there is no hope, no fate, no destiny that can circumvent or hinder or control the firm resolve of a determined soul. So shall it be done. Let's talk about that. How many of you have people in your life, maybe you're related to, but maybe they're just mentors in your life, that have made serious impacts and contributions to you that you feel you're going to carry on to, your generation? How many of you can identify people when I talk like that? Wonderful. I as well do. I want to introduce to you my grandfather. His name was George Veater, and he was born in 1904, and he died 22 years before I was born. So, even though I didn't get a chance to share space with him, his life, his example, and what and who he was still influence me today. I'm grateful. Let me just tell you a little bit about him, and then you'll see how this ties into what I want to share. My grandfather was raised in a little tiny community, Circleville, Utah. How many of you have been there? Shocking. Circleville is a small place. It's only famous for producing one celebrity. His name was Robert Parker, stage name Butch Cassidy. Other than that, it's still the same as when Butch Cassidy was alive. My grandfather was raised on a very small farm, ranch, and really didn't have much vision around him that he could do big things in life. But just like all of you here, there was something that just wouldn't let him alone, that he felt like he had to offer the world. And so as a young man, when he was 18, he married my grandmother, and he moved out of that place and came to California with a vision of wanting to build an agricultural empire. I don't know where he got that from. I don't know where in his DNA that actually sprung from, but that was who he was. Just like you can't help who you are, the dreams inside of you are yours individually. No one can reproduce them, so you owe it to the world to figure out how to get it out and make it work, whatever's inside of you. Well, my grandfather came out here, and timing was against him. This is after World War I. He was just 25 years old when the Great Depression started. And in 1930 is when he came to California. I mean, when everything was hitting the fan. We were in the worst financial predicament the country ever had seen and ever will see, probably 30 to 40. He died in 1941, January, before we got involved in World War II. Still very difficult times. But starting with nothing, my grandfather, bigger than life, only had 35 years to do it, had bought and paid for a 7,000-acre ranch where I live now. He had bought and paid for 2 sections out on the west side between Fireball and Mendota. He had partnership ranches in Dale, Montana and Elko, Nevada. He had 500 mother cows, 7,000 ewes, female sheep. And he had built an agricultural empire that is still affecting my family and others today. So how did he do that? He actually was able to create a life, not compete for a life, based on what he had inside him, and his life was never supposed to and never did look like anybody else's. Okay, today I not only want to talk about what will help us to achieve our ultimate best life, but I want to talk about how to enjoy it as much as possible. And there is a little paradigm shift that we all need to make mentally in order for that to be the case. All of us that are trying to do more with our lives in some way are probably involved in a competitive state, because business is competitive, sports are competitive, the music business is competitive, everything's competitive, right? And competition is good in that it makes us strive, but there are some negative aspects of competition. For example, if you feel like you have to beat somebody for you to win, there's a negative taste to that equation, isn't there? If you feel you have to take something because there's scarcity, there's only so much stuff, and for you to get yours, whatever yours is, if you feel like you have to take somebody else's to get yours, then that is a zero-sum proposition. Now, again, competitive juices are part of accomplishment, But it needs to be tempered by another way of looking at that, in my opinion. There was a book that changed my life I read years ago. It was published in 1910 by Wallace Wattles. It's called The Science of Getting Rich. Those of you who ever read the book The Secret by Rhonda Burns or watched that movie, that was the philosophy that she read that changed her life and that she tried to articulate to the world in her way. Well, Wallace Wattles, he had the idea that in order to be really great in life, you had to see things as a creation process, that we all come from a creator. We should learn how to create here on earth as children of this creator. And he saw that if we were struggling in the competitive plane, that couldn't sustain joy long term. And so that's where I first thought about this philosophy, was reading his take on it. So if we see it that way, and if we think about creating things, then we don't have to take from somebody else. If we believe there's not scarcity but abundance, and that things come to us, we create things, then again, we don't have to subtract to add. We just build. And then everybody is blessed in the process, right? Everybody involved in the process is expanding. And you're happy. Here's my experience. You can see on that slide picture of me riding bucking horses. I've been rodeoing since I was a little kid. In fact, that's what I'll be doing tonight. We have practice up on the ranch. But I've ridden Broncs for a long time. I started when I was 11, rodeoing, and then graduated into the sport. And so that's a real competitive outlet for me. And when I think about all of the times that I had specific aspirations to win championships, if I think about those aspirations and the accomplishment of those goals, here's what it felt like. In 2001, I was the PRCA Circuit Champion Bronc rider, which is the highest level of rodeo. That was something that I dreamed could happen, but I wanted to believe for a long time. It was hard to believe, and then it happened to me. But here was the disappointing part. When I got the goal accomplished, when I won the championship, that was wonderful for a little time, but it had a short shelf life, that feeling. And then it was just another day. And it didn't do for me what I thought it was going to do for me, in joy and happiness. Now it was just on to the next goal. Kind of give me another fix of that drug, right? It wasn't what I thought it would be. So again, looking at my grandfather's life and what he created, I decided to think of what I wanted my life to look like in every way. And I started visualizing and going through a process of accomplishment and how I could to build that life without winning, losing, taking. And there is a process to that. Here we go. The second book that I'm going to recommend to you is a book called Think and Grow Rich that was published after The Science of Getting Rich by Wallace Wattles. Think and Grow Rich was published in 1937. Napoleon Hill was a West Virginia journalist that spent 25 years studying successful people during that industrial era, the Andrew Carnegies and the John Rockefellers of the world. And he wrote a book about what they all had in common, okay? And then he published that as Think and Grow Rich. On page 36 in the chapter on desire, he gave us the formula for how to get things done. Number one, you have to decide exactly what you want to do. It has to be specific. It can't be vague and nebulous. It's got to be dialed in. And that's your work right now. If you don't have that down, you need to think about that and get that down. All of us can think of a version of a better life. Just spend some time with yourself and with whoever you worship, and you come up with that picture. We all can. We all can think of a better way to be. Decide what that is. The second thing, the price you're willing to pay. There is no such thing as something for nothing. Everything requires a price, and growth happens as a result of paying that price. So don't duck the price. Embrace the price. Be willing. Want to pay the price. That's necessary. Then create your initial plan. And it doesn't matter if the plan's perfect. It's not going to be perfect. In fact, the first plan is your experiment, right? And then you monitor and adjust based on your failures. You learn and you grow and you recreate the plan and you keep moving forward. Okay? General George Patton from World War II, he said it best. A good plan executed violently today is always superior to a perfect plan executed next week. Just move into it, okay? And then you write the plan down, because an unwritten goal is a wish. You got to specifically have it on paper. And then you've got to have a timeline to create urgency. And it's okay if you don't make your timeline, if you're making progress, right? You can reset your timeline. If you want it this year, but it takes you till next year, you're still going to feel like you got where you wanted to go, right? It's being, it's not when you're being. It's getting there. It's creating that vision. Okay, then the last thing is, once you've got all that down, you've got it on paper, then you visualize and rehearse it at least twice a day so that your mind and your maker know exactly where you are determined to go. Okay, and then have joy in the process. Now, the last thing that I want to just mention to you is that life is so much better if you approach whatever your ambition is as a creator, not a competitor. And I'm going to share with you a little short poem that hopefully brings that home. I saw them tearing a building down, a gang of men in a busy town. With a heave-ho-heave and a lusty yell, they swung the beams and the sidewalls fell. I asked the foreman, are these men skilled, the kind you'd hire if you were to build? He laughed and said, why no indeed, just common laborers are all I need. They can easily wreck in a day or two what builders have taken years to do. So I thought to myself as I went my way, what role in the game of life do I play? Am I a builder who handles with care, measuring my life with a rule and square? Am I shaping my deeds to a well-made plan? Am I patiently doing the best that I can? Or am I a wrecker who walks the town, content with the labor of taking and tearing down? Let's all get what we want and be creators and builders along the way. God bless you. This has been fun for me.